All right, welcome to week 7. We're going to be talking about entrepreneurial options here. And this is basically the idea of if you're going to set up your own business or you are already in business, the different types of business forms that might be advantageous to you. Sole proprietorships, partnerships, limited liability, S Corps, and C Corps. Uh, uh, Bottom line is most people start as sole proprietorships. LLCs or S Corps are the best. Partnerships, general partnerships are horrible. Sometimes that's necessary to do business overseas, but normally you want to avoid those or do things to protect yourself, like set yourself up as a corporation and then do the general partnership. Uh, Understand the life cycles of how these are formed and the liabilities associated with this. Bottom line, understand that if you don't follow the form or maintain the form, meaning the LLC or the corporate form, there's the opportunity to pierce the veil and you will be held personally liable. So a lot of these forms are driven to limit liability, ease of management, and also the ability to raise money. But if you are in a partnership, there's joint and several liability that can have be hugely problematic. One reason to avoid a general partnership. But obviously, to do business, you've got to be cognizant of the requirements of registration with the state, often with the local city or municipality or county to do business. There's zoning regulations, a whole boatload of requirements that you need to be aware of before you jump into being an entrepreneur. And as I said, most people will choose an LLC or S Corp. An LLC can be a one-person LLC, and likewise an S Corp can be a one-person S Corp. Tons of free advice here on your videos. One of the best that I have here is startupnation.com, kind of a community of entrepreneurs, very good information. And it's very easy to create these entities online with the Secretary of State's office as an online process. You just pay for it. It's fairly easy to create. But again, you got to maintain your licensing, your permits, etc. And it's always important to do all this in writing. A little bit about franchises. Take a look at Startup Nation, and you can obviously search the best and worst franchises. There's a lot of issues with franchises. Some are great. Some people do very well, but there's downstroke, certain amount of money to get in. You got to normally pay a percentage of your gross to the franchisor, the person who created the brand. You got to buy your product from them. So you're essentially working for somebody else. So it's often interesting to look at different types of franchises and to see if there's something you can do that's similar, but obviously you got to be concerned about violating intellectual property, copyright, patents, trademarks, things like that. Crowdfunding is a great way or a great opportunity to raise money. Various websites help you. Kickstarter is one of them, and that might be an alternative to why people often form a C Corp is to sell stock or an S Corp to sell stock. You can maybe look to crowdfunding as part of an LLC, so take a look at that. All right, corporations. Just highlight a few points here that understand how corporations set up. Stockholders own it. There's an obligation by the officers and directors to maximize stock. That's the general understood emphasis by corporations. There's some new thoughts there with conscious capitalism, which I'll talk about momentarily. But understand the life cycle of corporation, how it's formed, promoters, liability, and stockholders have a variety of voting options that they can do, etc. Various pros and cons. A big problem with the C Corp is double taxation. That's why a lot of people do S Corps, which you don't have that problem. And but with a C Corp, these are the major corporations. If the stockholders are upset, they can file a derivative action, pierce a corporate veil, and there's all kinds of potential liability here. It's very important to understand a little bit about security regulations. If you're selling stock or negotiable instruments as an investment vehicle in your company. Those are regulated, so you have to register with the state and federal government at least, depending on the amount of money you're raising. But there's normally at least a minimal registration requirement if you are engaged in selling what falls within the classification of securities. It would be very important to do that. So that's the end of week 7.